Mr. Speaker.
I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to take one issue with something that Alistair Scott said before the dinner break, Mr. Speaker, and I think it really defines the difference between Labor and National when it comes to spending and responsibility and how we view things. Alistair Scott was talking about the housing solution, the housing issue, and he said about Labor's solution, he said, and I quote, "Do we really expect the government just to build houses? As if this was just an anathema." Well, the thing is, Mr. Speaker, the answer to that is yes. That's right. Is yes. Now, the reason I say that is I believe the main difference between the two parties is National believes you can leave things up to the market. The market will provide the best solutions. The government doesn't need to interfere because it'll all do okay. Where Labor believes, certainly in a country the size of New Zealand, that the government has a very important role in providing for its citizens, in giving them a hand when they need a hand, in providing houses, providing education, providing police services, actually meeting, if not, or even exceeding the expectations of New Zealanders. We believe that the government has a very important role in driving equity of outcomes and of opportunities. We believe government is about doing the right thing when it comes to fairness for all New Zealanders. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to talk about my 4 portfolios. But before I do this, one thing that I think this government has done particularly poorly, there's a number of things, but one thing I'd like to highlight, and I'll weave through my 4 portfolios, is managing our global brand. Now, I've talked about this a bit. Our global brand is worth about $20 billion a year. It's what differentiates us. It's what businessmen and women take overseas when they're hawking their products. It's what makes us proud to be Kiwis, because we stand for integrity, we stand for fairness, and people know we come from a country that value these these values, basically. It's who we are, and it's part of our DNA. People know it, and I'm very, very proud of it. But if we look at what's happening in the country, Mr. Speaker, I am concerned that this global brand we have got has been mismanaged to the point where it is, we have got brand dissonance. There's no doubt about that. And we need to start managing for this, because if we don't, we're in big trouble. Let me start with police. Mr. Speaker, no matter what the Minister says, crime is increasing. Month on month, the stats have just come out, month on month, this year compared to last year, burglaries nationally were up by 35%. There are over 1,500 more burglaries committed in May 2016 than May 2015. And yet there are less police on the beat. In Hawke's Bay, fewer police on the beat. In Hawke's Bay, 43% drop in police on the beat between May 2015 and May 2016. And that makes a difference. Lower resolution rates, Mr. Speaker. We know this. We know that in Auckland, less than 8% of all burglaries committed are going to be solved. That, Mr. Speaker, does not play into how we view our communities and the role of government in providing protection for our communities, crime prevention, but also solving crime so the bad guys can go away. Forestry. Mr. Speaker, forestry is now dominated by overseas interests, and this was epitomised to me when we have a situation in Gisborne. There's a Malaysian investor owns a 35,000 hectare forest. There is a sawmill there which is owned by the local Economic Development Agency, would employ about 40 people in the area with the highest level of unemployment in the country and one of the highest levels of deprivation. Fantastic place to go on holiday though, it's a magic spot, Gisborne. This forestry company is sending pruned logs right past this mill to send overseas without a cent of value added at all. And as a consequence of that, this mill can't start up without a guarantee of lumber, without a guarantee of logs. And when the Minister was asked about this, she said, well, that's the market. We let the market decide about this. Well, that's wrong. That is wrong. What about Kiwis? What about jobs for New Zealanders? And this sawmill, who want to buy logs from Hikurangi, this sawmill, they don't want any special favours. They're prepared to pay for logs at the global price, but no. And this is what happens when we lose control of our future of a strategic industry. It is wrong, Mr. Speaker, and we need to change that as well. Let me look at revenue. We've just got a tax system which is not fit for purpose. And John Sherwin has come out with his report, and the fact that he had to write a chapter on New Zealand's reputation shows that we are in trouble. When I talk about our global brand being one of integrity and fairness and transparency, and when John Sherwin comes out and says our global reputation is at risk, then we know we need to do something about that. And the thing about a reputation, Mr. Speaker, and again John Sherwin outlined this, the thing about a reputation, it is often about perception as opposed to the facts. So when a member of the government stands up and says, well, the facts say this, my response to that is that's all very well, but when international media are calling New Zealand a tax haven, when international media are saying, invest in New Zealand, set up an overseas trust in New Zealand because the laws are lax and you don't have to declare who the beneficiaries are, and it is easy to get away with hiding money, then we know we're in trouble. Now, who cares if that's the reality? That is the perception in the international media, and again, it cuts to the very heart of who we are as Kiwis. We are a country full of integrity, and this cuts to the very heart of that. Let me have a look at electricity and energy. Mr. Speaker, it was fantastic to see the Minister drive to a photo op for the 1,000th electric car registered in New Zealand. But the thing is, he drove to that photo op in a huge, big diesel BMW. He had the photo op, he jumped in that huge, big diesel BMW and drove back to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be great if the government actually walked the walk and ministers started by driving electric vehicles? Imagine, Mr. Speaker, if our Crown fleet was electric vehicles. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't it be great? Even the Minister agrees with me. She obviously does not have the power to influence those in control, because if it was up to her, then we would have a Crown fleet full of electric vehicles, but there are none. But there are none. What a shame. Start walking the walk and stop talking the talk. It's actions that speak louder than words. Mr. Speaker, imagine international visitors being picked up at Wellington Airport in Teslas. Imagine what that would do. Imagine the brand. Imagine that would resonate around the world. You know, we have led the way in a number of these initiatives, Mr. Speaker. We really have. From the day, we gave women the vote, the first to give women the vote. Women won the right to vote. And then, we were nuclear free. We were leading ETS. We were global players in all these things which were incredibly important to defining our global brand and to who we were on the global stage. And people looked at New Zealand and went, wow, these guys are just amazing. Look what they stand for. And it played, all of these things played into who we were. And ever so slowly over the last 8 years, Mr. Speaker, these have been eroded. We're now falling behind in the ETS. That plays into our global brand. Nuclear free has sort of disappeared. Women have still got the vote, thank goodness for that. But these things that made us great, these things that defined us, these things that gave us a unique selling point are slowly being eroded to the point we've now got a tax system which is seen as an easy target for overseas money launderers. We've now got a forest system where the overseas investors just don't care about local jobs. We've now got an electricity system which is creaking. And there are global innovations going on, and we're way behind the 8 ball. And Mr. Speaker, we've got a police force where the men and women on the front line work incredibly hard. They work incredibly hard, but that thin blue line is stretched to breaking point. And when I read the budget this year, Mr. Speaker, and there was no money allocated for more police, man, that is the wrong direction. And what's worse is if I have a look at the police's strategic plan between 2016 and 2020, it says there are going to be no more officers on our streets. And that is simply wrong. There is so much more that needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, but the thing that I'm afraid of is that government just is unwilling to do it. The only way we're going to get things back on track is a change of government. Bring on 2017. Thank you very much.
I call Jamie Lee